Few names in America evoke as much mixed reaction as the Rockefeller family. What is remarkable about this legendary dynasty is not just their powerful business empire, but the fascinating story behind their immense fortune. A tale of ambition, innovation, and the resilient will to overcome all adversities. But before becoming the symbol of a prestigious dynasty, where did they begin? How did a boy who grew up in poverty manage to build a colossal financial and business empire that helped shape the history of the United States? And more importantly, what lessons remain from this extraordinary story? Let us dive into the story of the Rockefeller family. John Davison Rockefeller was born in 1839 on a small farm in Richford, New York, as the second son in a poor family. From an early age, John understood the harsh realities of life. His mother, Eliza, a devout and disciplined woman, constantly taught her children about sacrifice and thriftiness. As a child, John learned to record his expenses in a small notebook to carefully manage his finances. In contrast, his father, William, infamously known as Devil Bill, wandered around selling fake miracle medicines, making his whereabouts mysterious and shady. Bill would sometimes disappear for months or even years, only to return with barrels of goods and cash. At times, his debts to local stores would climb to $1,000, a staggering amount in those days. "I underwent a strange training process at home," John once recalled. "It was as though I was being taught business from a very young age." Bill had a habit of negotiating, and even trying to trick his own sons out of money to sharpen their wits. He would lend them money at high interest rates, suddenly demand repayment, and force them to figure out how to settle the debt. Although John disliked these lessons, they profoundly shaped him. From his father, he learned flexibility and cunning in business, while from his mother, he inherited perseverance. Together, these qualities began to mold John into a promising young businessman. In 1849, the Rockefeller family's world collapsed. Bill was accused of raping a maid, and instead of facing the charges, he fled, leaving the family to endure the scandal alone. This was a deeply humiliating moment and left a lasting emotional scar on 10-year-old John. Perhaps it was at this time that he found solace in the local Baptist church. Every Sunday, when the collection plate was passed around, John's mother would urge him to put in a few of their meager coins. He began to associate the church with charity. A pastor once advised John to make as much money as you can and give away as much as you can. John later reflected, "At that very moment, the financial plan for my life was shaped." A few years later, the case against Devil Bill was dropped due to lack of evidence, and he returned to take the family to Cleveland. What seemed like a fresh start soon turned out to be a facade. John discovered that his father had taken a second wife under a false name, and the move to Cleveland was simply to conceal and continue his double life. Bill eventually disappeared again, leaving Eliza to struggle to support her 5 children alone. John had to drop out of school to help the family make ends meet. In 1855, the 16-year-old secured a job as a bookkeeper for Hewitt & Tuttle, a produced brokerage firm in Cleveland, earning 50 cents a day. This marked the beginning of John D. Rockefeller's illustrious career. The young man's meticulous work ethic immediately stood out. He examined every invoice in detail, identifying even the smallest errors of a few cents. His diligence and precision set him apart. Before long, John developed sharp observational skills on the job. At the same time, he continued to carefully record every personal expense in his ledger, down to the smallest amount. To him, numbers were sacred. His accounting notebook became a second conscience, guiding his daily activities. After a few years of modest earnings, John managed to save a small amount and borrowed $1,000 from his father, Bill, of course, with interest. Determined to escape his impoverished past, John Rockefeller decided to start his own business. His first venture was buying and selling meat and grain at the age of 18. Not long after, a life-changing opportunity emerged. At that time, the oil boom was erupting in Pennsylvania. In 1859, the first commercial oil well was drilled in Titusville, igniting a blaze in this nascent industry. Thousands of miners flocked to the black gold fields, hoping to change their fortunes. But John Rockefeller took a different approach. Instead of gambling on risky drilling ventures, he realized the greater opportunity lay in refining oil and distributing the products. In 1863, he partnered with Morris B. Clark to establish his first oil refining company in Cleveland, strategically located near railroad tracks that connected directly to the oil fields. Low transportation costs and an efficient distribution network enabled the company to reap significant profits from kerosene production. John D. Rockefeller bet his entire life on this budding industry. He borrowed tens of thousands of dollars, equivalent to millions of dollars today, to reinvest in his business. However, John had a strong vision and a profound belief that this was his destiny and that of the United States. He believed that, like him, the young nation would ride the wave of oil to achieve greatness. Alongside his business ventures, John Deeb continued to cultivate his faith and philanthropy. Even as a modest office worker with limited means, he paid for the freedom of a slave and donated to a Catholic orphanage. As his wealth grew, his charitable contributions became even more generous, especially to the churches in Cleveland. Returning to business, in 1865, while Clark wanted to pull back, John Rockefeller decided to expand. He bought out Clark's shares in the company and raised additional capital from his brother William and a few other family members. Before long, the company grew at a staggering pace, with output and profits quadrupling compared to pre-1865 levels. By 1870, John Deeb was ready for a larger endeavor, merging 5 other refineries to form Standard Oil. This was seen as the seed that would grow into the Rockefeller empire. Later, Standard Oil was more than just an oil company. It was a revolution in business operations. Rockefeller implemented advanced management practices that were unprecedented in his time. From optimizing production processes and tightly controlling costs to building a comprehensive distribution system, every aspect was meticulously calculated. But more importantly to John D. Rockefeller was eliminating competition. Every decision he made was aimed at achieving absolute control to dominate and dictate the market. At first, John collaborated with competitors, sharing profits to get them to comply with the so-called standards of Standard Oil. But over time, he sought to eliminate these companies at all costs. Sometimes he bled them dry with endless price wars. Other times, he spent heavily to buy them out. In an effort to stop him, many refused to sell crude oil to Rockefeller and his associates. Facing strong resistance, John Deeb did not hesitate to employ any tactic to crush his rivals. He developed an advanced transportation network, strategically partnering with major railroad companies to secure exclusive distribution rights. Starting in 1870, Standard Oil secretly struck deals with the 3 largest railroads in the region, securing transport rates 50% lower than those of his competitors. This move immediately created crushing pressure on companies that didn't comply, forcing them to choose between merging with Standard Oil or going bankrupt. Beyond this, John Deeb sometimes cut off the supply of chemicals needed to refine oil, leaving his competitors without the materials to produce their products. At other times, he bought up all the barrels on the market, making it impossible for competitors to store and transport their goods. Even specialized tanker cars were tightly controlled by John D., creating maximum difficulty for any company outside Standard Oil. These aggressive measures quickly paid off. Within months, Standard Oil had taken over 22 of the 26 refineries in Cleveland. By 1879, at the age of 40, John D. Rockefeller controlled 90% of the world's oil refining operations. It is no surprise that Standard Oil wielded enormous geopolitical influence. However, this extreme monopoly also led to widespread criticism of Standard Oil. The public began to call Rockefeller unflattering names like robber baron or dictatorial tycoon. Hearings, investigations, and lawsuits began to challenge the Standard Oil empire, and John D. was summoned to testify in court time and again. In 1897, John D. Rockefeller retired from active management at Standard Oil, remaining only as the titular chairman. There was no public announcement, but the legal troubles and ethical controversies surrounding the monopoly persisted. In 1901, journalist Ida Tarbell took it upon herself to uncover the secrets of America's most powerful businessman. With her investigative talent and analytical skills, Tarbell's serialized exposé shocked the public, revealing numerous shady practices, from monopolizing railroads to bribery and the hostile takeover of competitors. Tarbell's revelations outraged readers and spurred government action. Even President Theodore Roosevelt openly criticized Rockefeller as a lawbreaker. Author Leo Tolstoy declared that no honest man should work with him. Public opinion branded Rockefeller a thief, and he received a barrage of threatening and abusive letters. Perhaps the most damaging blow came when Tarbell exposed Rockefeller's father, Devil Bill, as a polygamist, a seller of counterfeit goods, and an accused rapist. Rockefeller remained silent throughout the scandal, a patience he had learned from his mother during his childhood. In 1911, after extensive investigations and hearings, the federal government issued comprehensive antitrust indictments against Standard Oil. The company was ordered to restructure and split into more than 30 smaller companies to avoid violating antitrust laws. One might think this would weaken Standard Oil, but history proved otherwise. After the breakup, the individual Standard Oil companies became more valuable than the single conglomerate. Over the following years, their stock values doubled and tripled, and ultimately, Rockefeller ended up with the largest personal fortune in history. At its peak, his wealth was equivalent to nearly 2% of the U.S. economy. Ironically, Losing the antitrust case made John D. Rockefeller the first ever US dollar billionaire in history. His streak of fortune didn't end there. Just as the electric light bulb threatened to eliminate demand for oil, the automobile industry emerged. The rise of the automobile suddenly made gasoline products the new king of the energy market. This explosive growth is believed to have rejuvenated Standard Oil and its spin-off companies. John D. Rockefeller's son was among those who reaped the benefits. The successor to John D. Rockefeller, John D. Rockefeller Jr., also known as Jr. to distinguish him from his great father, was the sole true inheritor of the massive Rockefeller family fortune. Born in 1874, Jr. had a strict childhood, adhering closely to the principles instilled by his parents. From an early age, he was taught to be frugal, keep records of all income, and engage in philanthropy. He grew up under immense expectations and carried a heavy burden as the sole son and heir. The pressure was so overwhelming that Jr. suffered 2 nervous breakdowns before turning 18. Jr. entered Brown University in September 1893. He continued to record all his expenses in a ledger and lived a modest life compared to his family's immense wealth. However, his independent life at college allowed him, for the first time, to do things previously forbidden, like attending theater performances, participating in recreational activities, and even smoking cigarettes. Most importantly, it was during this time that he met his future wife, Abby Aldrich, a beautiful woman from a prominent family in Rhode Island. In 1897, after graduating, Jr. officially joined Standard Oil with aspirations of working alongside his great father. But things didn't go as expected. Instead of being given specific tasks, Jr. felt lost in an unfamiliar office, with an empty desk and a few unstructured minor duties. Determined to prove himself, Jr. took a bold leap into the stock market. However, tragedy struck when poor advice from a shady speculator caused him to lose $1 million of the family's fortune, a costly mistake for the heir. Over time, even though Jr. held important roles within the empire, he came to realize he was entirely different from the ideal image his father envisioned. Lacking the instincts of a seasoned capitalist and uninterested in monopolistic strategies, Jr. sympathized with competitors and often provided them with financial lifelines. In the early 1910s, as Standard Oil underwent restructuring and continued to grow, Jr. seized the opportunity to distance himself from leadership roles. Instead, he shifted his focus to his true passion: philanthropy and preserving the family legacy. In 1913, Jr. and his father co-founded the Rockefeller Foundation with an initial endowment of $100 million. The foundation's ambitious goal was to promote the welfare of humanity worldwide. It became one of the largest charitable foundations in history, cementing the Rockefeller name as a symbol of wealth used for philanthropy. As the public outrage over Standard Oil subsided and philanthropic efforts expanded, Jr. was determined to erase the stains on the Rockefeller family's wealth. However, his hopes of restoring the family's reputation faced a devastating challenge. On April 20th, 1914, bullets tore through the peaceful skies of Ludlow, Colorado, as the National Guard opened fire on a tent colony where striking miners and their families resided. During the fierce 14-hour clash, at least 21 people were killed, including 2 women and 11 children. The event went down in history as the Ludlow Massacre. At the center of the storm of criticism was John D. Rockefeller Jr. for the first time. The full weight of public opinion fell directly on Jr. He was not only held accountable for the Ludlow tragedy, but also bore the brunt of America's disdain for the ruthless monopolistic tactics his father had once employed. The intense pressure left Jr. deeply worried about the uncertain future of the Rockefeller family, but from the ashes of disaster, he resolved to turn the tragedy into a historic turning point. He personally traveled to Ludlow to engage with and listen to the miners and their families. Jr.'s empathy and reform-driven determination led to a series of positive changes in labor policies, gradually improving the lives of miners. More importantly, Ludlow marked the beginning of his mission to rehabilitate the Rockefeller name, a task that seemed almost impossible. Americans began sharing a saying: if you told anyone in America that one day the Rockefellers would be synonymous with good deeds instead of greed, they'd never believe you. Jr. sacrificed himself to salvage the family's reputation. Over the decades, he transformed himself into a symbol of philanthropy and social responsibility. He not only reformed business practices, but also donated millions of dollars to healthcare, education, and the arts. From the infamy of Standard Oil, a model of a compassionate and responsible businessman was born. In 1937, John D. Rockefeller passed away at the age of 97 at his estate in Florida. His funeral was held with great solemnity at the Pecanico Hills residence. All operations of the Standard Oil empire worldwide were paused for 5 minutes to honor the man who had founded it. By the 1930s, the Rockefeller family seemed to have completely shed its controversial and scandalous image. Most subsequent generations of the family focused on social activities, arts, and philanthropy. However, Nelson Aldrich Rockefeller, the second son of Jr., took a different path. Born in 1908, Nelson inherited many traits from his grandfather, including leadership skills and political ambition. Despite experiencing many ups and downs, Nelson eventually became the governor of New York and the vice president of the United States. However, looking back at Nelson's political career, a sense of regret seems to overshadow it. In reality, he held a golden opportunity to represent the Republican Party in the presidential race. Still, his divorce from his wife of 30 years and his remarriage during a sensitive campaign period caused Nelson to lose all his advantages. The collapse of Nelson's presidential campaign marked the Rockefeller family's inability to reach the pinnacle of American political power, a feat that Donald Trump, another tycoon, achieved in the 21st century. Meanwhile, Johnny Rockefeller Jr.'s other children also made their marks in various fields. Abigail and John III became well known for their philanthropic activities. Lawrence was a pioneer in conservation. David served as the chairman of Chase Manhattan Bank, and Winthrop became a public figure. In 1966, Winthrop was elected governor of Arkansas. In the 21st century, the Rockefeller family remains one of the wealthiest and most influential families in the United States. However, their influence has diminished significantly compared to their peak in the 20th century. According to Forbes, the total wealth of the Rockefeller family is estimated to be around $10 billion. However, this vast fortune has been divided among many family members over generations. Today, no individual from the Rockefeller family appears on the list of the richest people in America. Despite this, the Rockefeller family continues to maintain significant influence through charitable organizations and investment funds they have established, such as the Rockefeller Foundation and the Rockefeller Brothers Fund. These organizations focus on areas like healthcare, education, scientific research, and sustainable development. In politics, some members of the Rockefeller family remain active, with notable examples such as former U.S. Senator Jay Rockefeller. However, the family's direct political influence is no longer as strong as during its golden age. Today, the Rockefeller family is also known through prominent figures such as Professor Stephen Clark Rockefeller and heiress Ariana Rockefeller. It can be said that, although no longer a dominant force as in the past, the Rockefeller family remains a wealthy and influential family in American society through its philanthropic and investment activities. And that is the history of the Rockefeller family, from obscurity to becoming one of the most powerful empires that entirely controlled the U.S. economy in the 20th century. In just over half a century, this empire claimed a unique position with almost no rivals in history. Over time, the Rockefeller family has become the quintessential example of sustainable success and ascension, albeit not without controversy and scandal. I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my channel. Thank you for watching until the end, and I'll see you next time.